What I want to share with you today are the 4 things that I wish I knew before moving to Saudi Arabia. It's funny, when I moved here, first of all, there was no introduction by the company I was with in terms of the cultural differences in how you treat people, whether in a social or professional context. There was nothing shared. And part of this obviously is on me, right? I should have done a bit of a Google search to try and understand a bit more about the Arab Saudi customs. But what I found when I came here is foreigners are almost given a bit of a free pass in this kind of stuff. Because, we're not expected to know any better. This most likely at the time did me some good in terms of I didn't necessarily know what I didn't know. But I do actually wish that I delved into this a little bit more, researched it a little bit more, maybe, with some of my local friends, spoken to them about how things are, the social etiquette, some of the behaviours that I should be aware of, to be able to show respect for the culture that I'm in, and to be aware of these things that may cause frustration or anger or upset amongst people. That is why I wanted to share these 4 things with you, so you don't make the same mistakes as me, these social faux pas or embarrassments or potentially upsetting someone. And of course, if ever in doubt, just ask. People are more than happy to share things with you when you show an interest in their culture as well. Number 1, you need to be careful where you put your feet. And the reason I say that is showing the sole of your foot, whether it's your foot or a shoe, is potentially disrespectful for people. Disrespectful, insulting even. This stems from cultural beliefs where, the foot is the lowest part of the body. It's in contact with the ground, in contact with the dirt. So the foot is associated with dirt, uncleanliness, and exposing it to someone can actually give the impression that you think that they are below you or they are not worthy of your respect. And let me show you what I mean. I think I'll get up here so you can see. So I like to cross my legs, right, when I'm sat anywhere. And usually I just sit like this. Bottom of the foot facing whoever is over here. So really, if you are going to be someone, you have to kind of sit like this, which for me makes it a little bit uncomfortable. And so I was actually here for 4.5 years before I actually realized this was a thing. I was in a bank and I was sat waiting just like this. And there was a man, 2-3 meters away at his desk. He looked over at me, clicked, and then kind of did this sort of thing. Didn't speak any English. The guy I was with instantly saw and was like, Pete, you need to put your foot down. So yes, in short, if ever in doubt, don't show your foot to anyone. And this is even the same thing if you're sat on the floor, right? You don't want your feet pointing at people like this. Even me doing this to you, it's for demonstration purposes. I don't think you are below me. Now this is going to be something that is more with the older generation, traditional people, better wins potentially outside of the city. So the best thing to do is just assume that everyone views it the same way and you won't be caught in the same situation. Now, what is up next? All about the right hand. So performing any action with your left hand is not looked upon well, and it's generally avoided. This may be shaking hands, it may be passing something, it may be fist bumping. Everything is done with the right hand. Eating, all of that kind of stuff. The left, just pretend it doesn't exist. And the reason for this is the left hand is generally associated with personal hygiene. It's often seen as less clean. If you are going to the toilet, then you're going to use your left hand to, do all the business with. You've got the little bum gun in the right hand, and then your left hand does the rest of the work. So using the right hand is a sign of courtesy, respect. And so this was never really something that even entered my mind previously, right? Living in the UK, you just don't think about it. The only thing which I would say is similar is you always shake with your right hand, and a firm handshake. No one wants a limp wrist handshake, horrible. But yes, right hand is what you use for pretty much everything. I imagine it's the same thing, right? If you're here, you're brought up with always passing things with your right hand. I believe if you're pouring tea, the tea is poured with the left hand, and then you pass the glass or the cup, the mug, with the right hand. So it's just a sign of respect, and start thinking about it. And if you're here, you can start looking at people to see if they are, or how they're doing it, right? And then you can sort of see in what occasions it happens, or if there's any slip-ups. But I don't think there is, because I remember doing that once, and everything is always right hand, right hand, right hand. Okay, now this is quite a fun one. Number 3 is always about letting the person on your right go first. And let me tell you, this one will have you looking like a pro. It's my favorite. So in short, again, it's a sign of respect, it's a sign of honor to let the person on the right go first. This may be when you're in a lift, opening a door for someone, in a queue, that sort of thing. As mentioned before, the right hand is generally seen as more positive, more clean, sign of respect, courtesy, humility. And so letting the person on your right go first, it shows a sense of respect and that you value them. And this is actually my favorite thing to do when out in these sorts of occasions, right, with the general public. Wherever we are, if we're in a lift, waiting to go into a restaurant, a cafe, whatever, the individual will always say after you, right, you first, whether they're on the left or the right. And this, I think, shows their welcoming nature to foreigners and tourists, right? Politeness, hospitality towards a foreigner. And then here is the trick. If they're on your right, you insist that they go first. And they'll be like, no, you go first. And then what you have to say is Yameen, which means right. And then straight away, guaranteed, they will laugh and then accept defeat in this sort of politeness battle that you've got going on. They'll understand that you have learned about the culture, you get the culture, and you'll share a little laugh together. Maybe make a new friend. It's things like this that I found just make it look like you respect the culture and you understand the culture and you have a desire to learn and mingle and integrate with the people here. There is, however, one exception to this, and that is when people are driving. People don't give up. If you are on the right, if you're indicating, if you want to turn off, if it's your right of way, if you're on the roads, the rules do not apply. Now, the last one I'm going to share with you is understanding the differences between men and women. So obviously when you're coming to a new country, there's certain traditions, customs that you need to be aware of in terms of interacting with people. As a prime example of this, some women tend to prefer to not go in for a hug or a handshake in terms of when they're greeting someone. I remember this situation, and I was at the British consulate, there was a party, and I put my hand out, I was sort of introduced to this group, put my hand out, shaking hands, and it came to this woman. And I took my hand out to, shake the hand with a strong, firm British handshake. And she went like this. For a minute, well, not a minute, that'd be awkward. For a second, I was like, and then I understood. And she was obviously accepting my welcome, my gesture, bringing it to her heart as her way of showing respect and a warm welcome. Some women obviously will not interact with men in a certain way because of their sort of cultural, religious norms surrounding gender or interaction between gender and personal barriers. And this really is all an attempt for modesty, right? And then even for some, physical contact with a man outside of their immediate family is strictly prohibited. But that's even if it's just a handshake or, a pat on the back or whatever it might be. Any interaction is not okay. And I remember talking to a friend of mine at one point, and he was a director in this company, and he was waiting for this lady to go past, and as you do, you might put your hand on their back and sort of let them go. He then received that afternoon a very strongly worded email from this lady just emphasizing how it was not okay what he did, and it made her feel awkward, it made her feel sort of uncomfortable. So at that point, obviously, he knew that, you can't just, without even thinking about it, make contact, even if it is totally innocent, with other people. And if in doubt, I would say never assume. And be aware that things are different. I mean, it's obvious to say, but even if you get close with people, you never know what their preferences or biases are like. So always treat people with sort of the utmost respect, and just be aware of these boundaries that exist between people and the personal space and all that kind of stuff. And so you should be armed to keep your feet away from people, to keep your left hand away from people, to just do everything with your right hand and, treat women and men in a certain way. So hopefully this gives you a really good idea and a practical idea as to how you can integrate, immerse yourself with the locals, with the culture here, because that is where the magic happens, I must say. That is where you really get the joy out of the experience here. So good luck.